"Walter, you're holding us up again, move? We have to meet our schedule?" someone shouted. The taunt echoed through the empty school hallways, stinging more than expected. Walter just kept pushing his cleaning cart forward, its wheels squeaking. With every revolution, his colleagues had no idea that this janitor had once led covert operations that saved lives years before he ever maintained educational facilities. Soon, a former soldier trained under Walter's leadership would reveal the whole truth. Let's explore this story, Harbor. Press High School was located just 3 blocks from the ocean, where ocean breezes constantly carried the scent of salt water and seaweed through the peaceful streets. The facility was old, with long hallways lined with closets and restrooms, shaped by countless generations of students. Walter Hensley had been the school's janitor for nearly 2 decades. For him, the position meant more than just work. It provided him with intellectual stimulation after his early retirement from the military. He showed up on time every day and stayed until the facility gleamed, the trash cans emptied and the hallways prepared for dawn. His attire never varied, a worn cap and sneakers dulled by years of walking these corridors. In his locker, besides his work clothes, were only 2 possessions: a small, worn photograph of uniformed military personnel and an old Navy ID card. Communication wasn't his strong suit. He typically responded to others with nods, silent acknowledgments, or brief affirmations, and rarely participated in group discussions. His approach to all tasks was systematic and precise, even though his back ached daily from a severe disc injury, which slowed his pace compared to others. This quickly led to whispered comments and ridicule from younger employees. Despite the criticism, Walter never expressed any complaints. At 67, he maintained his quiet concentration, as if time flowed differently for him. His work was flawless, without a doubt. Each shift ended identically. He sat alone on the courtyard bench, watching darkness fall behind the foliage. His movements remained calm, yet his posture suggested the weight of unspoken memories. School days remained hectic, especially toward the end of the semester. Teachers rushed to complete assessments. Students organized graduation plans, and staff managed the constant commotion of youthful vitality at its peak. Amid this chaos, Walter maintained his deliberate pace, cleaning each area with almost artistic dedication. His work style began to irritate team members. "Walter's polishing that drinking fountain like it's a masterpiece," remarked Jeremy, another janitor. "I've asked him to start with the conference rooms, but his response is always, 'I'll take care of it,'" said Oliver, the maintenance manager. Gradually, frustration turned into ridicule, and impatience turned into scorn. "Walter, you're holding us up again, hurry up. We have to meet our schedule." The taunts ricocheted through empty hallways, cutting deeper than obvious. Walter continued to push his cleaning equipment, the wheels squeaking, while others hurried around him. Something about Walter unsettled people. His meticulous care, beyond the expected, seemed to provoke jealousy or bitterness. And daily the looks became more judgmental. The crisis came one Friday during the monthly staff meeting in the faculty auditorium. Deputy Director Sheila Morton was under pressure to deliver results and promote greater productivity across all departments. "We need to review several evening shift logs," she announced. "Certain delays are making it difficult to open the facility in the morning." Seized his opportunity. "If permitted, I believe a replacement caretaker deserves consideration. With all due respect to Walter, he simply can't keep up anymore. We need someone faster. Someone younger. You understand how fast everything has to move these days." A chuckle arose. Others nodded uncomfortably. Walter sat in a back row, holding an old clipboard. He looked up for a moment, the kind of look that acknowledges a direct hit but remained silent. The director turned to him. "Mr. Hensley, would you like to say something?" "No, madam. Everything is fine," he replied in a firm but subdued voice. After the assembly, Walter resumed his duties. He silently cleaned the auditorium as if nothing had happened, but this evening he stayed 30 minutes longer than usual. He swept the courtyard twice, cleaned windows that no one ever touched, and before leaving, he stood briefly in the main hallway, looking at the school's dusty awards case. The following day, Oliver found a small note on his desk, written in careful handwriting. "I am ready to train my successor. Walter Oliver crumpled the note and threw it away without paying any attention to it. In the days that followed, Walter continued his duties, but his pace continued to slow. He abandoned his court ritual after shifts, stopped attending coffee breaks, and seemed to shrink a little each day. Some veteran teachers, remembering his early years, spoke quietly. This gentleman deserves greater respect. He fulfilled this role before half our staff was even working here. However, such voices were rare. Most people maintained their routine haste, unbeknownst to everyone, before learning to operate this cleaning cart. Walter had once carried injured soldiers on his shoulders, and each slow step hid memories he preferred not to discuss. Then the final night came, and everything would change. Graduation night was always one of the most anticipated events of the year. Parents, grandparents, students, and teachers filled the gymnasium, which was decorated with decorative lighting, floral arrangements along the seating, a long table carefully covered with neatly arranged diplomas. That Friday, the hall reached an extraordinary capacity. Over 200 students were graduating. School-colored balloons decorated the space. A live ensemble played gentle versions of contemporary songs. And the visiting dean prepared to deliver his address about the students, promising future prospects. Walter arrived earlier than usual, as always, without seeking attention. He wore his familiar worn cap and the old badge hanging from his chest, the text of which had faded with time. His name, Walter Hensley, was barely legible. But no one addressed him personally that evening. To everyone, he remained simply the building superintendent. That afternoon, he had cleaned the stage, arranged seating, checked electrical connections, and tested the sound system alone. Then he positioned himself at the back of the gymnasium, behind the last row, as he always did. He avoided attention, preferring to observe. With that expression that perpetually seemed to recognize more than he revealed. From the stage director, Sheila surveyed the audience. She spotted Walter in the back, but quickly diverted her gaze. Oliver, the maintenance supervisor, stood across from the stage, tablet at the ready, taking notes and directing the support team. Everything was going according to plan. The announcer began reading the students' names one by one. They crossed the stage, received their certificates, and posed for photos. The audience applauded steadily. Occasionally, a proud, "That's my child," sounded from the stands. Emotion permeated the atmosphere. Then they announced Brian Morgan's name. A gentleman stepped from the right side of the stage. Dressed in the uniform of a U.S. Navy officer. He was a former Harbor Press student, currently on military leave, invited. To present his son's diploma, Brian approached the microphone. The plan called for a brief, formal greeting and diploma presentation, but he hesitated. His gaze was fixed on the back row of seats. He stared as if catching sight of an apparition. Walter sat there, hands folded, eyes cast down. Brian paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and explained, "Before I present this diploma, I need to address something with the principal's permission that's long overdue." A gentle murmur ran through the crowd. Sheila frowned. Oliver raised his eyes from his device. "Tonight I met a face I never expected to see again, a man who taught me everything about honor, discipline, courage, and sacrifice." Brian pointed to the back of the gym. "That gentleman sitting there is Commander Hensley." The murmuring died down into silence. Brian stepped down from the stage and crossed the hall floor to the last row. He stopped in front of Walter. "Commander, with your permission." Walter slowly raised his eyes, showing something between surprise and exhaustion. Brian saluted, and the entire gymnasium rose. Parents, students, teachers, even the principal. Everyone stood. Applause began gently, then intensified. Some students began recording on their devices. Walter slowly removed his cap and stood up with effort, as if every joint were begging for permission. He offered a small nod. No words were needed, and none were spoken. That evening, the old caretaker finally became visible. The morning after graduation, the school atmosphere had changed. The surroundings felt transformed. On the main announcement board, someone had posted, An enlarged photo from the previous evening showing Brian Morgan saluting Walter. Below it was a handwritten message. Not every hero tells their story, but all deserve to be remembered. During morning recess, small groups of teachers whispered among themselves. Did you know about his service? No. Did you hear Brian's? Words about Walter? You called him Commander? Did you see his expression? That gentleman wasn't joking. Oliver, the maintenance supervisor, remained silent all morning. He avoided meeting Walter in the hallways. He told himself there had been no way to know, that no one knew that he was simply fulfilling his duties. But deep down something troubled him. The note Walter had written days ago now seemed infinitely heavier in his memory.
At lunchtime, Principal Sheila Morton called a staff meeting. Teachers, teaching assistants, and administrative staff attended. I think we all discovered something last night, she began, about judging people by their appearance. Some nodded, others looked elsewhere. Mr. Hensley will remain a part of this institution, and from today forward, he deserves the dignity and respect he has consistently shown us. From that day on, subtle changes began. The school library set up a section called the Honor Room, where students could explore veteran stories from different periods. The first story featured belonged to Walter Hensley, based on a recorded conversation, the only one he was ever willing to agree to at Brian's urging. When Wednesday afternoon arrived, Oliver entered the gym while Walter collected equipment from a sports activity. Mr. Hensley, may I speak with you for a moment? Walter looked up but continued collecting items. Certainly. Oliver hesitated, looked down, then up, and finally spoke. I wanted to apologize for my assembly comments, for the situations I allowed to arise. You are performing your duties exceptionally well, and we will respect your pace while supporting your back condition. Walter put his collection bag down for a moment. That's not necessary. It's necessary, Oliver insisted. I was wrong and you deserve better. You're a decent person and this school needs more people like you. For the first time, the name Walter Hensley began to be mentioned respectfully at school, not because he had asked for it, but because of the example he had consistently demonstrated. In the weeks following graduation, the school routine returned to normal, or almost. Walter Hensley continued to arrive on time, as he had for nearly 20 years. He pushed the same cleaning equipment, swept the same hallways, and secured the same windows that students forgot to close. However, as he passed by, school staff offered different expressions. These weren't looks of pity or excessive admiration, they were glances of recognition. Some greeted him with firm, good mornings. Others offered small nods. Nothing fancy but enough to change the atmosphere. A quiet kind of respect. The kind that comes when the world finally recognizes what has always been there. In the small break room where the staff gathered for coffee, Walter received invitations to join. Jeremy, the younger janitor, began sharing chore charts without objection. He even offered help when he saw Walter bending over to clean fixtures or moving boxes from the science classroom. It seemed as if Brian Morgan's words from that evening continued to echo through the halls, and somehow everyone began to ask themselves, what else am I missing about the people around me? Walter climbed the second-floor hallway near the library, where the new veteran's photo wall had been installed. At its center was his picture, displayed in a simple frame. Next to it, a small inscription read, Walter Hensley, Retired Commander, U.S. Navy. Walter examined the frame carefully and for the first time in many years he smiled genuinely, not at the photo but at his surroundings. Students had placed numerous handwritten messages beneath his picture. Simple phrases like, thank you for cleaning our room before the exams. Now I understand why you're so meticulous about everything. My father served in the Navy, he would have appreciated you. Walter read every one because ultimately, the true impact we make on the world isn't discovered in our accomplishments, and certainly not on plaques bearing our names. It's found in how we behave, in actions that quietly inspire others to do right, to exemplify right behavior for future generations. Knowing this, we can be confident that our responsibility has been fulfilled.